Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business television podcast, a look back at last summer's special Indy Tech Town Hall at the Union 525 in downtown Indianapolis. We take a look at Indiana's growing tech scene, the state of venture capital in Indiana, and the push for more women in tech. And a special insiders panel looks at growth, challenges, and opportunity in the local tech scene. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. The Union 525 is establishing itself as an emerging tech hub in downtown Indianapolis. Located at the former Emmerich Manual High School, it aims to provide a home for high-growth companies and organizations, including Levimentum, Springbuck, and SmartFile. SmartFile President John Hurley, a managing partner with Union 525, joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick to talk about its growth.
The idea came from me looking for space for my software company, SmartFile, and not being able to find space that was flexible, affordable, and allowed me a short-term lease. Once you go over that 2,000 to 3,000 square feet, the commitments become a lot longer. So a mutual acquaintance of mine put me in contact with my now partners on the project, and the minute I walked into this building, I knew it was something special. I didn't find out till later on that evening that this was the first vocational school, not just in Indianapolis, but the United States, and I just knew it was something special.
Talk about what is here in this concept and what makes the Union 525 unique.
We've got Purdue Polytechnic High School, we have Rolls-Holman, we have now IU. In addition, we have that startup company with Launch Indy in the co-working space, in addition to what we call Startup Alley, 12 offices dedicated for that 4 to 5 person shop that has shared resources. Scale-up companies like SmartFile, Scale Computing, Greenlight, Levimentum, etc. And then all the way up to the enterprise with Lilly and their technical services team.
You mentioned Levimentum. Their CEO talked about the uniqueness of this space and how there's certainly nothing like it out in Arizona, and how that was really an important part of their coming to Indiana.
Absolutely. So when we developed the space, I've been in software for 20 years, and it's always about maximizing your dollar. And when we built those spaces, each one of them were well thought out in terms of flexibility, really allowing companies like SmartFile and Levimentum to be able to have a lot of flexibility and grow, whether you have 15 people or you have 60 people. So it's a really unique product, but what makes it most unique is we do 1, 2, and 3 year leases at scale. So if you have 7,000 square feet, we've developed a product or what we call a platform that allows these tech companies to easily plug in and move in and not have to spend a lot of time trying to manage space.
Talk about what you're accomplishing here in terms of the environment, the culture, the vibe that is part of this facility.
It's tough to recruit talent and retain talent, and I know that more than anybody, so we've really developed a space that allows people to connect. So where you're sitting right now will soon be a coffee house. Behind us is a studio that we're developing. Just behind on the other side is a 3-story slide and a connection point for all the entrepreneurs and tech folks. We have a 122-year-old gym that we've converted to not just a gym, but also a meetup space, complete with speakers and just amazing sound. Top-of-the-line fitness center, bike storage, you name it. We really put a lot of focus on the amenities.
The location, the physical location, near south side of downtown, very close to Eli Lilly and Company and Rolls-Royce, Lucas Oil Stadium. It's really right in the heart.
It is. I look at the south side as kind of the last frontier for downtown. What's great about this location is we have a lot of opportunity to expand and build on to what we're doing here. In addition to that, parking is a lot easier, easy access to the highway, and then you're just on the fringe of within 1 block, you're downtown. I think this is a great location, not just for some of the amenities I talked about, but you're right, Lilly, Rolls-Royce right across the street. This is really the innovation district if you think about downtown. We're sitting right in the middle of it.
What can we expect to see perhaps in the next maybe 3 to 5 years here?
We actually own 3.5 acres behind us, and we have some big news that we're about to announce in regards to a 4-story, 700 space parking garage that we're working with the mayor and the city on, in addition to another 150,000 square feet of this same model just connected. So we kind of see this as a campus, and we have a lot of opportunities within this block to expand.
Still to come, the state of venture capital in Indiana And what can the state do to attract more women to the tech sector? But first, Indiana's tech scene is starting to blossom. But how did we get here? ExactTarget was founded in 2000 by Scott Dorsey, went public in 2012, and was acquired by Salesforce for $2.5 billion in 2013. That has given Dorsey a pretty good seat for the sector's growth, and he spoke with Inside Indiana Business about what Indiana has done to spark the surge and where the industry can go from here.
Well, let's look back before we look ahead to ExactTarget, a company you co-founded back in 2000. Talk about starting that company, which is one of obviously the real success stories in Indianapolis and Indiana. But talk about starting that company back in 2000, the environment back then.
It was considerably different.
Yeah.
We had software artistry was really kind of the big exit and success story that then created more momentum within the tech community, but we were just getting started. You know, TechPoint didn't exist, and some of the pressing issues facing the tech community were items like no daylight savings time, no direct flights, and then you look across even Indianapolis and downtown Indy, we still had the old airport, we didn't have world-class hotels and restaurants, so the foundation and infrastructure we have today is so superior to what we had 15 years ago, but it's been a fun journey and fun to be a part of the entrepreneurs and set of companies that have been building that momentum over the last couple decades.
During the process of growing ExactTarget, was there ever a feeling that you might have to move the company?
We really never felt that way. You know, Chris and I both married these wonderful girls from Indianapolis, and we just decided this is where we wanted to build our family and build our companies. And we were fortunate that our investors never applied any pressure to move outside of Indianapolis. I think part of it was that we were always just enthusiasts and champions for the city, and we're very quick to point out kind of all the wonderful attributes of Indianapolis and why growing a tech company in Indy and the state of Indiana was actually preferable to other parts of the country, including the coast.
Salesforce acquired ExactTarget for $2.5 billion in 2013. The Salesforce name is now on top of the state's tallest building. How important was that acquisition, do you think, as you going forward? Does it validate in some respects Indianapolis as a tech hub?
Well, you know, for all of us at ExactTarget, it was just a tremendous journey. You know, we love building the company and building the culture and being a part of Indy Tech. For Salesforce to acquire ExactTarget was significant, but then even more significant is just their continued investment in the community. And Gary, the Salesforce Tower is just fantastic. You know, it's a wonderful legacy for all of us at ExactTarget, but even more importantly, it's a brand, it's a beacon for our future, and for the city of Indianapolis to be branded a tech city and a tech community and have that tallest building be the Salesforce Tower is really, really terrific. And when we sold the company, it's always bittersweet when you sell a company, but it's certainly been more sweet than bitter because Salesforce is really committed to Indianapolis, and we had a sense that was going to happen. That was certainly part of the early dialogue, but you never know until it really happens. And I'm grateful to Mark Benioff and Salesforce that they keep doubling down in Indianapolis and making a big investment.
Let's talk about what you're doing now. A lot of things, but in particular High Alpha, a venture studio. You and others raised $35 million to make that happen. You're creating new software companies, investing in companies as well. Talk about High Alpha.
Yeah, we're having a blast with High Alpha, Gary. We just hit our 2-year anniversary. Started High Alpha with just amazing partners, Christian Anderson, Mike Fitzgerald, Eric Tobias. We've created what we call a venture studio, and we actually believe it's one of a kind in the United States. We're one part startup studio called High Alpha Studio, one part venture capital firm called High Alpha Capital, and having the two operate under the same roof has some really significant advantages. So on the startup studio side, we have about 20 employees, designers, developers, business analysts, software as a service experts, and we start new companies. And you actually just had one of our new companies on the show last week, Quantify, and very talented RJ Tallier, and we're very optimistic and confident about the future of his leadership in that business.
What's the one big challenge that you see standing in the way of continued momentum here in the Indianapolis region?
Yeah, I really look at it as just scaling companies. And boy, Michael Angelier and TechPoint have been doing a phenomenal job on the talent side. That's an important part of the equation. The next part of the equation is really capital. We need to get more aggressive in how we execute and grow our businesses, and we need to get more aggressive in scale-up capital. And what I mean by scale-up capital is local venture capital firms that can write a $5, $10, $20 million check into a promising software company to really build a breakout, build a category leader.
Scott Dorsey, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate
Thank you.
all you do for Indiana. Thanks for being on the show this week.
My pleasure.
You can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check the listings. Later in the podcast, is Indiana a good place for women in tech? And a special insiders panel takes a look at Indiana's tech scene. But now, if Indianapolis and Indiana want to emerge as a tech hub, they need venture capital. Despite having the 17th largest state economy, Indiana ranked 27th in the amount of venture capital invested in 2016. TechPoint President Michael Angelier and Elevate Ventures Chief Investment Officer Ting Goody joined IIB to talk about how the state can become more competitive in attracting that funding.
Michael, start with you to kind of set the stage for venture capital in Indiana, but this is an Indy Tech Town Hall, so really focused here. What's the current state of VC?
You have two main types. You have startup or seed investment, which is typically historically not only here but around the country, driven mainly by angel investors, so wealthy individuals that are investing into companies, or firms like Elevate Ventures or a few other VC firms that invest earlier stage as a company's just getting off the ground. And then you have scale-up investment, which is really at the stage where typically it's venture capital firms, so institutional dollars are coming in and investing larger checks into companies that have a product, have early customers, and it's really about scale. And they're typically investing a couple to several to many million at that stage.
I want to talk about that in a minute because I think that's the challenge. But in terms of the startup activity, what are we seeing?
Yeah, I think we're seeing from those different stages, because of the success that we've had in the state, so $7 billion now in acquisitions and IPOs among companies in the tech community, that seeds a whole new tier of angel investors, right?
Because you are participating in a lot of deals. Talk about that deal flow, the activity you're seeing.
From a company standpoint, roughly from 2009 to 2016, we're seeing about 300 leads a year in terms of deal flow activities. This year alone, in the first 5 months, we're seeing that close to 300 new opportunities coming through our door. So that's definitely increased in terms of companies actively out in the marketplace raising capital. Even on the investor side, the emergence of new funds, new angel groups, new family offices, just the last 3 to 5 years, that's particularly encouraging as well.
So it's good. I know Elevate participated with a company that won the pitch competition, right? The recent INX3 event here in Indianapolis, which was a big success. InScope Medical, Jeffersonville.
That is correct.
Talk about that. You attracted them. They moved across the river from Kentucky.
Yes, that's a great story. Maggie Galloway, a first-time entrepreneur and co-founder of a tech-enabled medical device companies. She and her co-founders originally based in Louisville, Kentucky, and they were looking at different opportunities in that general area in Jeffersonville. It turns out to be a good locale, and they were in conversation with us, and we were able to provide certain level of capital commitment that contribute to the decision to move across the state line.
Mike, in terms of the challenge, people talk about, and Scott Dorsey talked about it, that scale-up money, getting that kind of money here. What needs to be done to improve things?
Well, first of all, we don't have enough VC firms located here. So the number of firms that can actually write a several $million check, there just aren't very many. Allos Ventures has done a great job for quite a few years. Hyde Park has started to come into that space as well, but we need more. And that's why the Next Level Fund was so critical this year. It could help to fund those larger checks, and those VC firms is critically important. And so that's why some of the events over the course of the past week were critically important, because we brought in 75 venture capital firms and companies to the Winter Circle event from all around the country, 35 VC firms. They represent $16 billion in funds that they're investing right now, and that's critically important to get those funds into Indiana companies.
Ting and I, we were talking off camera a little earlier. The ideas are certainly important, the companies, the products, but the real magic is around that management talent, right?
Absolutely. That's actually, for me, the biggest benefit out of these recent success that we have from ExactTarget, from Angie's List, from Interactive Intelligence, it's the entrepreneurship team that have acquired certain growth and scale-up knowledge, and they're now coming out and joining or starting their own companies. Now have a strong track record to raise capital, lead venture-backed companies and be successful.
Yeah.
That's something we did not see 5 or 10 years ago.
Yes. All right. Mike Langelier from TechPoint, Ting Goody from Elevate Ventures. Thanks very much for some great perspective.
Still to come, a special extended insider segment with a look at the tech sector's present and future. But first, Indiana has proven to be a pretty good place for women to work in tech. In fact, recent reports suggest women in Indy earn 102% of their male counterparts' salaries. But challenges remain, specifically more women taking on big tech roles and women launching tech companies. Found Search and Marketing Managing Partner Julie Warnicki and Angie's List Senior Vice President of Technology Robin Fleming joined us to talk about what the state can do to change things.
Robin, I'll start with you. There's been some positive news recently around women in tech in Indianapolis in particular that is, fairly positive. And I know you like to see that, but you also question it a little bit.
Yes, so I would start with, I think Indianapolis is a fantastic community for tech for anyone. I think it's fabulous for women. We have a very supportive community. With regard to the gender pay gap, I know there's a lot of companies that focus on that. I would really love for us to have our own data so that I could really get behind saying that we're the best. And I think organizations like TechPoint will be working on that in the future.
As you look at, in recent weeks, we've seen some women-owned tech company success stories. MyCOI announced a big expansion downtown. Knowledge Services expanding the corporate headquarters up into Fishers. Torchlight raising money. How important is it to have those success stories that can kind of be out there as examples?
Oh, it's extremely important. And, we need to really kind of champion those, get behind those. We need more press. I think it serves as a catalyst and kind of the spark that will help other women know that they can actually do it.
Julie, you're a great example of women in tech experiencing it not only here in Indiana, but out on the coast as well. Worked at Google, employee what? Number
300 and something,
so
327.
One of the early Google employees on Sheryl Sandberg's team out there. What did that experience tell you, show you, benefit you in terms of women in tech positions?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, I don't think, I didn't really expect to have a work experience like that. But to be surrounded by women that were, very ambitious and very motivated and really made their careers a priority and really help be, supportive for other women around them. And it was interesting coming from the Midwest and being in Silicon Valley, and obviously it's a very hard driving area, but yeah, it was a great experience.
Grew up in Shelby County, went to IU, moved out to the coast, moved back to Indiana in I think 2006. Talk about over the last 10, 11 years, have you seen the landscape change for women in tech?
Yeah, I've seen it change quite a bit. I would go to a lot of events, in 2006, 2007, where it would maybe just be me and a couple other women there, almost like the one-off. And now it is so much more common to see women in positions, not just in small tech startup companies, but in the more established companies, taking on C-suite roles, board management roles, and it's becoming much more common, which is great.
Yeah, but it still represents a small percentage. I think there are some numbers out there in Silicon Valley, senior executives who are women is like 11%, CEOs 9%.
Right.
So a pretty small piece of the pie.
It is a small piece. I think if companies looked at the financial results and how companies performed with a diverse workforce and with diverse women or diverse leadership organizations, then they would be more interested in making sure that they have women in those positions. McKinsey did a study that shows that those diverse organizations outperform others by 15%. And if you're ethnically diverse, it's over 35. So, the data really shows it.
Talk about the impact that some of these organizations are having. I know you're involved with the Startup Ladies. There are others that are very intentional about women in tech and getting young girls involved in STEM and those types of things at an early age.
Yeah, we really, I've been here since 2011. We have so many organizations. The Women in High Tech is one of the older organizations that focuses on STEM. We have the new IWIT organization, which is focusing on the tournament. We have Next Tech, which focuses on mentoring. We have TechPoint Foundation for Youth. We have the TechPoint Extern program. So we've just got, and another one that started last year was Teacher Tech Connect, where we connect connect professionals in the industry with teachers. So all of those organizations are focused on girls and women.
Very good. Robin Fleming and Julie Warnicki, thank you very much. Thanks for all you do for women in tech in Indianapolis as well.
Thank you.
The second half of our Tech Town Hall featured a special insiders panel focusing on the current and future tech landscape and taking questions from a studio audience of entrepreneurs, innovators, students, and community leaders. The panel features Hyde Park Ventures partner Tim Kopp, Cluster Truck co-founder and CEO Chris Baggett, Launch Fishers founder John Wexler, and Speakeasy executive director Danielle McDowell.
And as we begin this segment, we want to take a couple of questions. We had some folks queued up with questions from the audience. So, ma'am, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Carrie Utter from Greenlight.Guru, and I was wondering that we had mentioned that the Indianapolis tech community is growing exponentially, but yet there are so many other cities out there with a large tech community. So what brings young people like me who are just starting in the tech industry to Indianapolis? What is the main feature?
What's the magnet? Who wants to take that one?
I mean, it's critical mass, first of all, right? As you start to talk about that flywheel effect earlier of attracting more energy once you have it rolling. I think the amazing quality of place in Indianapolis, the walkability, connectedness of downtown, the surrounding communities, the neighborhoods in Indianapolis, and then the suburban environments. It's a beautiful ecosystem for graduated, moves. As a student comes in, they spend some time in downtown, and from there they can grow, raise a family here, and kind of plant themselves for the long term.
Yeah, we have one more we'll take from the audience as well.
Hi, Kendria Williams with Lemonade Day Indianapolis. I was just wondering, there is a lot of momentum built around the tech community. There's a lot of support and there's a lot of resources. How can we take this momentum that's been built around the tech community and apply it to those non-traditional entrepreneurs who aren't tech related?
I think, success breeds success. And, I just happen to be in the food business, right? And I am exposed to that environment, and I can see so much innovation happening in the food space and the agricultural space right now. So from that viewpoint, I can see it happening. I think once people realize that you can be successful, running your own business, whatever that is, and there's so much room for innovation that, I think that's kind of happening.
I think it's teaching. Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
I think it's teaching the fundamentals, right? So if we're able to teach what the playbook looks like, how you apply innovation and diversity within that innovation, I think is something that's accessible. My business was a beauty business of all things, but we still, built that around a tech platform, and we're able to take that to market. And it's there, it's happening. It's just, we got to double down.
Tim, you wanted to add something?
I think the cool thing about technology and entrepreneurism is the great equalizer. I mean, if I thought about the career path to success, even when I started my career, you had to sort of grind out 4 years and then get your MBA, like it was to go be a doctor, a lawyer, lots of schooling. In technology, I barely even looked at the resumes of the people I hired in some cases. It was really looking at aptitude and kind of hiring for a skill set or a profile. So there's just so much ability to catch up so quickly because it's all so new. There are no experts. It's all sort of relative. So I think it's really leveled the playing field in a pretty profound way.
We didn't touch on it in the last segment. We do want to hit on venture capital, funding ideas in companies. Tim, we'll start with you. A lot of talk about the VC landscape improving, but still challenges here in Indiana. How would you assess it?
Yeah, so I'd say a couple things. First off, Hyde Park Ventures, we're on our second fund. Our first fund lasted about 4 years. We had one investment in Indiana. We're now on to Fund 2. We're about 2.5 years into that fund. We just made our 8th investment in Indiana. So, and we're seeing other firms follow suit. So, it takes a while. There is this compound math. It takes a while to sort of catch up. The other thing, I don't know if people have fully sort of caught hold of, but I think one of the biggest things that's happened for this ecosystem in many years in the recent legislative session that went by, there is going to be several $100 million fund of funds that's created to invest capital back into Indiana. And we've seen that already happen in Michigan and already happen in Ohio. And I've been saying for years, I think that is the number one thing that we could do to have a significant impact on the state. And that's going to unleash tens of millions of dollars to invest directly back into the state as well. So I'm very excited about that.
Chris, what's your take?
I think, first of all, entrepreneurs need to start there, right? The people that they know, people that love them, their friends, their family. Start small, not instantly think you need to raise, $10 million or $1 million right away. Just get to the first step and the second step. There's also a lot of new instruments. There's something called a SAFE that just came out of Y Combinator. Cluster Truck, we've raised a lot of money using that. There's the Jobs Act, so now unaccredited investors for the first time ever are allowed to invest in startups. So, there are a lot more pockets of money than there were 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Good. Want to also look ahead. What's next? There's been a lot of talk of momentum. Danielle, as you look going forward for Indianapolis to continue the momentum and kind of reach those levels that everyone wants to get to, what needs to happen? Is there something that's missing now that needs to be there?
I think that we really need to find what our competitive advantage looks like. What does that mean to our city? What does that mean to our state? And I think that being able to diversify where we're investing and how we're investing, to Chris's point. And then the other part of that is increasing that appetite for risk and R&D and giving people safe spaces where they're allowed to experiment and research and, really think outside the boundaries will deliver a much more diverse opportunity for not only our workforce, but also investors.
We did not talk about women in technology, talked about it earlier in the show, but you've thrown out the idea of a women-focused fund.
I've done some research of my own over the last 10 years. 5% of venture capital has gone into female-founded businesses, with one of those businesses being mine. I think that number has an opportunity to increase. I don't think this is a blame game. I think that is an opportunity for us to create a competitive advantage. We know that in investing, when a woman is at the executive table, it allows for diversity in their thinking, in their mindset, allows for increased innovation. A lot of times those businesses, they will exit at 2.5 times just their only male counterpart peers, and you can invest 2 times less the amount. So they know how to bootstrap.
Very good.
We're good multitaskers.
Good. John?
Yeah, as a father of a daughter, obviously I want to see this continue to get better. I think that we see a lot of good signs that good things are happening. I'm very cautious to not put the mission accomplished banner up yet. We still have a long way to go. And so when you look at things like the Kauffman Entrepreneurial Index and you see Indiana ranked 44th in the country, that's one where I go, what? That's got to be the methodology is wrong, right? That's your first response, right? But the reality is, look, these are measurements across the country. We need to look at that and see what we can do to get better across the country. Yet we rank in the top third in intellectual property and commercialization of IP out of our universities. There's a disconnect somewhere. I think part of it is access to capital, but I think some of it is the entrepreneurial edge, and I don't know how we infuse that.
Only about 45 seconds left, but Tim, Chris, final thoughts on looking forward, what you'd like to see happen?
Well, I think we're seeing it. What I like seeing is that we're getting away from kind of MarkTech. I see so many new companies that are applying software and technology solutions to older problems. I mentioned 120 Water Audit before, but they booked $1.5 million in the last 5 weeks. And women-owned company or a women CEO company, so she's struggling to get funding, which is a problem. But there are great opportunities like that.
Yep. Final word, Tim.
Yeah, I'll go back to where John did. It's fascinating. I think people in other parts of the country believe in Indiana and Indianapolis maybe more than we believe in ourselves. Whereas it was very hard for us to get a meeting with the large sort of billion-dollar funds many years ago. Now there's a line of 6, 8, 10 deep that want to talk about what's going on there. How do we get involved? They know it, they see it, they know what's happening. So I agree. I call it humble confidence, and I think we just need to continue to dial that up.
Inside Indiana Business's slate of free e-newsletters brings Indiana's top business news directly to your inbox. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to subscribe. We now continue with our special Tech Insiders panel, with a focus now shifting to challenges and opportunities as the industry looks to the future.
We opened up talking about the kind of the landscape in Indianapolis and central Indiana for tech. I want to talk about some of the challenges now. There are several. Some of the challenges that get talked about most of all, venture capital, funding ideas and companies, but also talent, the ability to attract and keep talent. Chris, I'll start with you on the talent issue. It gets a lot of attention. The market's tight for technology, especially as we see more companies announce hiring plans and those types of things. What's your take on talent attraction?
Well, I think you have to be able to tell a really interesting story to people, and you've got to help them see the vision. And it's getting tight. We need to start thinking as a community about recruiting from outside of our community. But I also think we have a huge benefit with these universities that we have. So, when I moved here in the early 90s, I think the stat was something like 87% of all college graduates left the state. And I don't know what the number is now, but I have to think it's significantly better than that.
Yeah. Tim, we talked about a tight market off camera in the break here, and you said, well, it may be tightening here, but it's nothing compared to maybe some other spots.
It is a tight market for particularly for deep technical sets or marketing, the more specialized you get in particular. But boy, if we think we have it tough here, I'm really glad I'm not in the Bay Area day in and day out. The talent wars that are happening there with offers to double your salary if you leave, and people almost more of a free agent kind of mentality where people switch companies, switch jerseys multiple times a year. While we have our challenges, I'm glad we're not in some of the other markets.
Yeah. What should Indianapolis be doing? You talk about quality of place. There was a question about culture earlier, and that changing culture. What are some of the things you think we really need to do, Danielle, to be attractive, to not only keep talent, but attract it here from elsewhere?
Well, I think continuing to beat the drum and sound the drum on what the vision is. So knowing that where we're going and where we want to go in terms of technology and growing our community and culture is really important to be able to portray that vision. Secondly, I think we need to double down on what's working. I referenced earlier, TechPoint, I think, has a really phenomenal stat around their extern program. They have hundreds of kids that come in from all over the country.
And these are college students.
College students
from all over the country.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Something like 5% of them see themselves living and working in Indiana, and when they leave that program, 95% of them see themselves working and living in Indiana. So if we're able to show someone what the vision is, I think that they see it, they buy into it, they see what a great community we have, and they come and join the ranks.
Yeah, I think the live, work, play triad is an important formula to keep refining. Things like the cultural trail that connects communities throughout the Indy area and ultimately to suburban locations north and south. I think that's a not to be underestimated component of choices that people make when they're deciding where they're going to move after college, let's say. If they're into biking, hiking, walking with their families, these are important assets to have to attract that kind of talent.
Have a question from the audience.
Hi, my name's Tim Hickel. I'm from Springbok. And Danielle, I thought you brought up a really good point when you talked about uniting that vision and really articulating that vision. Anecdotally, I've observed that a lot of people from Indianapolis struggle to articulate that vision. So I'd love to hear from the panel what your perspective is on what that vision is and what we as a community should be doing to articulate that more clearly as we communicate about the Indianapolis tech community compared to other communities around the country.
Absolutely. So I think it's really pretty simple. It's two things. One, we want to be a leader in technology. I think that we've spent the last 2 decades really pushing that rock up the hill, and we're in a place where we've seen tremendous amount of growth and tremendous success there. And I think it's time to double down. If you're interested in excelling in technology and being in a place where your leaders will invest in you, this is the place to be. And then secondly, that it's a great place to live. You can live here, you can start businesses here. We have strong ecosystems that will support you in several types of endeavors, but really we want to make sure that we are pushing ourselves to be a leader in technology. That's where I think we need to go.
Anyone else on that articulating that vision? I think that is a great point. We don't do a good job of kind of telling what is a great story.
I agree. I think it depends what angle you're coming at it from. I mean, now that I get to shine more of a venture lens on it, one of the things we talk a lot about is capital efficiency. You can build a business here. Your time to business impact is as fast in Indianapolis as any market I've seen, because you can get a business up and running with a group of experts and domain experts who have oftentimes previously built a business and are plugging in. But the costs are so much less than so many other markets. You can get it done so much more cost efficiently and effectively.
Very good. Do we have another question from the audience?
Hi, I'm Phil Tran from Fishers High School in Launch. My question is, how do we encourage the younger generation to pursue entrepreneurship as a viable career option?
Very good.
I think one thing that we can do is give kids of all ages insight, give them a look into what it's like to be an entrepreneur, right? It's really easy to understand how you become a doctor today or how you become a lawyer, but it's not always clear how you become an entrepreneur. And so I think by bringing elementary, middle school, high school age kids into our ecosystems, into our places of work, the Speakeasy, Launch Fishers, Launch Indy, showing them what it's like to work in an entrepreneurial company. I think what you see is it really starts to cater to their natural and innate desires to kind of work in an evergreen space, right? They don't want rules constraining them on what they can think about or do every day. And so, the life as an entrepreneur is one of the most liberating things in the world, because it's really up to you to add value to the world. You're not relying on someone else coming out with a list and saying, do these 3 things today, unless they're investors, of course. I'm kidding. But I think giving our young people insight into what it means to be an entrepreneur is a good first step.
Exposure, exposure, exposure. I feel very strongly about this one. Studies show that if you expose a kid to entrepreneurism between the ages or the grades of 5th grade and 8th grade, their likelihood to become an entrepreneur skyrockets. And really it's that molding and being able to allow them to think about different ways that the world interacts with and different businesses interact. And I can give an example. My 5-year-old son came to a pitch competition right when I started the Speakeasy, and I left. I had no information. We left and I said, did you get this? Did you understand what was going on? And he looked at me and he said, well, the best idea wins.
Perfect.
There you go.
And that's it.
Remember, you can find all of our TV segments as well as the top business news from throughout the state at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.